The creature had killed 43 handlers in 6 months. Admiral Tejo stood before the reinforced observation window, his 4 arms crossed tightly against his chest. The glass was 3 meters thick, built to withstand plasma fire and small explosions. Behind it, in a containment chamber the size of a sports arena, the Warbeast paced back and forth like a nightmare made flesh. They called it Fenris 9. It was the last of its kind, captured from the dying world of Krath after the Coalition forces finally broke the Krathian Empire. For 300 years, the Empire had used these beasts to conquer 17 star systems. Entire planets had surrendered at the mere sight of one. Tejo understood why. The creature stood 4 meters tall at the shoulder. Its body was covered in scales that shimmered between black and deep purple, each one harder than ship armor. 6 muscular limbs ended in claws that could tear through titanium like paper. Its head was massive, with a jaw that could crush a ground vehicle and 6 eyes that glowed with terrible intelligence. This was no mindless animal. This was a weapon that could think. "Another handler died this morning," said Director Yuna, walking up beside him. She was tall and thin, with silver hair pulled back in a tight knot. She ran the Xenobiological Containment Division, and the dark circles under her eyes showed how little she had slept in recent weeks. "Velik this time, one of their best psychic bonding specialists." "How long did he last?" 14 seconds. The human delegation arrived on a small transport ship that looked like a toy next to the massive cruisers of the other species. Ambassador Jimin watched through the viewport as the Eternal Vigilance grew larger and larger. The station was enormous, a city floating in space, home to millions of beings from across the galaxy. He had studied the files. He had memorized the protocols. He had practiced the greetings for each species in their own languages. And still, he felt completely unprepared. Humanity had made first contact only 40 years ago. In galactic terms, they were newborns. Infants taking their first steps into a universe filled with ancient civilizations. The Velik had been traveling between stars for 10,000 years. The Moor had achieved faster-than-light travel before humans had discovered fire. To these beings, humans were primitive, fragile, insignificant. "Daddy, look." Jimin turned to see his daughter Hana, pressing her face against another viewport, her eyes wide with wonder. She was 7 years old, with messy black hair and a gap-toothed smile that could light up any room. He had not wanted to bring her on this mission. 2 years was a long time to be away from Earth, but his wife had died the year before, and there was no one else to care for Hana. So she had come along. "I see it, little one," Jimin said, walking over to stand beside her. "That is the station, our new home for a while." "It is so big. Are there aliens there? Real aliens?" "Many aliens. All kinds." "Can I meet them? Can I be friends with them?" Jimin smiled sadly. He did not have the heart to tell her that most aliens would not even notice her. Humans were too small, too weak, too unimportant to matter. They had no natural weapons like the Velik, no psychic powers like the Thren, no bodies made of living crystal like the Moor. They were just soft, fragile creatures with short lives and limited abilities. Dr. Suji joined them at the viewport. She was the 3rd member of their delegation, a xenolinguist who specialized in alien languages. She was young for her position, only 32, but brilliant. She had already learned 7 galactic languages and was working on her 8th. "The docking procedures will begin in 10 minutes, she said. "Ambassador, you should review your notes one more time." "I have reviewed them 100 times. "Then review them 101 times. First impressions matter." The docking went smoothly. The welcoming ceremony did not. The Coalition had sent a junior diplomat to greet them, a Velic barely out of its molting phase, with a bored expression and clicking mandibles that conveyed obvious disinterest. The welcoming speech lasted less than a minute. The tour of the station was rushed and incomplete. By the end of the first day, Jimin understood his place in the galactic order. Humans were tolerated. They were not respected. The days that followed confirmed this truth. Jimin attended council meetings where his suggestions were politely ignored. He proposed trade agreements that were set aside for future consideration. He offered humanity's friendship and received lukewarm acknowledgement in return. "They do not take us seriously," he told Suji one evening, sitting in their small quarters. "They see us as children playing at diplomacy. Then we must prove them wrong," Suji replied, slowly, patiently, over time. "We do not have time. Humanity needs allies. We need technology. We need protection. The galaxy is dangerous, and we are very, very small." While the adults worried about politics, Hana explored. She wandered the public areas of the station with endless curiosity. She asked questions about everything she saw. Why did the Velic click their mandibles when they talked? Why did the Moor glow different colors? Why did the Thren float instead of walk? Most adults ignored her or gave short answers before hurrying away. But she did not give up. One day, she met a young Velic named Chirik in the station's garden dome. He was small for his kind, with bright green eyes and a habit of twitching his antennae when he was nervous. He was hiding behind a row of alien plants, clearly trying to avoid someone. "Hello," Hana said, sitting down beside him. "I am Hana. What is your name?" Chirik stared at her with obvious confusion. Human children did not usually talk to Velic. Human adults did not usually talk to Velic. Humans mostly kept to themselves, aware of how little they mattered. "Chirik," he finally said, "why are you talking to me?" "Because you look lonely. And I am lonely too. Do you want to be friends?" It was such a simple question, such a human question. Chirik's antennae twitched rapidly. Among his people, friendships were formed through careful social rituals that could take years. You did not just ask someone to be friends, it was not done. But Hana was still waiting, her head tilted, her smile bright and open. "Yes," Chirik said, surprising himself. "I would like that." Over the following weeks, Hana and Chirik became inseparable. He taught her about his people, about the way they saw the universe through compound eyes and felt vibrations through their exoskeletons. She taught him about Earth, about dogs and cats, and the strange human habit of forming bonds with other species. "You made friends with predators?" Chirik asked one day, horrified and fascinated. "With animals that could kill you?" "They were not predators after we became friends. They were family." Chirik did not understand. Among the Velic, you dominated lesser creatures, or you avoided them. The idea of befriending something that could hurt you was strange, dangerous, foolish. And yet Hana spoke of it like it was the most natural thing in the world. One day, Hana heard about the monster in the containment level, the scary creature that killed everyone who came near it, the beast that could not be tamed. That night she could not sleep. She lay in her bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the poor creature locked up all alone in a cage. Everyone was scared of it. Everyone wanted to control it. But no one had tried to be nice to it. She asked Dr. Suji the next morning, "Why does no one just ask the monster nicely to behave?" Suji laughed gently. "It does not work that way, little one. The creature is dangerous. It does not understand nice." Hana frowned. She was not so sure about that. After all, everyone had said the same thing about wolves a long time ago. The explosion came without warning. Hana was in the corridor outside the garden dome when the lights flickered and died. A deep rumble shook the floor beneath her feet. Then the alarm started screaming, a terrible, high-pitched wail that hurt her ears and made her heart pound with fear. She had wandered away from her quarters again. Daddy was in a meeting. Dr. Suji was in the language lab. Hana had been bored, so she had gone exploring, looking for Chirik. Now she was alone in a dark corridor with red emergency lights flashing and alarms screaming, and she did not know what was happening. Far away, in the command center, Admiral Taiho was learning the terrible truth. A Krathian sleeper agent had been hiding on the station for months. He had planted explosives in the power grid, specifically targeting the containment level. The blast had not been large, but it had been precise. It had knocked out the magnetic barriers. It had disabled the security doors. Fenris 9 was loose. "Seal all sectors!" Taiho shouted, his 4 arms flying across the control panels. "Evacuate levels 12 through 20. Get every soldier we have to the containment area." "Sir, the beast is moving fast," a technician reported, her voice shaking. "It has already reached Sector 7. We have confirmed casualties." Sector 7. Taiho's blood ran cold. That was the residential area near the Garden Dome. That was where the humans lived. In their quarters, Jimin felt the explosion and immediately thought of his daughter. He ran to her room and found it empty. Her bed was made. Her stuffed animals sat in a neat row on the pillow. But Hana was gone. "Hana!" he shouted, running into the corridor. "Hana!" The alarms drowned out his voice. The emergency lights painted everything in bloody red. He ran through the halls, checking every room, every corner, every hiding spot. His heart was pounding so hard, he thought it might burst. Dr. Suji found him 10 minutes later, tears streaming down his face. "She is not here," he said, his voice breaking. "I cannot find her. Suji, I cannot find my daughter." Suji grabbed his shoulders and forced him to look at her. "We will find her. The station is on lockdown. She cannot have gone far." "You do not understand." Jimin's voice was barely a whisper. "The containment level is near here. The beast, Suji, if the beast is loose." They ran. In Sector 7, the creature moved through the corridors like death itself. Fenris 9 had waited 6 months for this moment. 6 months of captivity. 6 months of handlers trying to break it, control it, dominate it. Now it was free, and nothing in this station could stop it. It had already killed 11 beings. Soldiers who had tried to slow it down. Scientists who had not run fast enough. A Valak diplomat who had frozen in terror at the sight of it. Their bodies lay scattered in its wake like broken dolls. The creature was hunting now, not for food. It did not need food. It was hunting for the joy of hunting, for the pleasure of killing, for revenge against everyone who had tried to cage it. It turned down a new corridor and stopped. There was a small creature ahead, very small. It was sitting against the wall with its knees pulled up to its chest, its hands over its ears, its eyes squeezed shut. It was making sounds, quiet, rhythmic sounds. Was it singing? Hana was singing her mother's song. When the alarms had started, she had tried to find her way back to the residential area. But the corridors all looked the same, and the emergency lights made everything confusing, and she had gotten lost. So she had done what her mother had always told her to do when she was scared. "When you are afraid, little flower, just sing, sing and be brave. Singing keeps the monsters away." So Hana sang. She sang the lullaby her mother used to sing every night before bed. She sang it over and over, trying to drown out the alarms, trying not to think about how alone she was. She did not hear the creature approach. She did not hear the scrape of its massive claws on the metal floor. She did not hear its breath, deep and rumbling like distant thunder. But she felt it, a strange feeling, like being watched. Like something big and dark was standing right in front of her. Slowly, Hana opened her eyes. The monster was right there. It was huge, bigger than anything she had ever seen. Its body filled the corridor, blocking out the emergency lights. Its 6 eyes glowed like purple stars in the darkness. Its jaws were slightly open, revealing teeth longer than her entire arm. Hana should have screamed. She should have run. She should have frozen in terror like so many others had. But Hana had never learned to fear what she did not understand. She thought about what Chirik had told her, about how different species saw the universe in different ways. She thought about her mother's stories of wolves and horses, of animals that seemed scary until you treated them with kindness. She thought about her dog back on Earth, a big German shepherd named Max who had scared the neighbors, but who loved belly rubs and sleeping at the foot of her bed. The monster was watching her, waiting. Its eyes were intelligent, curious. It had expected her to attack or run. Everyone attacked or ran. But this tiny creature just sat there, looking up at it with wide eyes that held no fear. Hana slowly lowered her hands from her ears. She got to her feet, brushing dust from her dress. She looked up at the massive beast towering over her. And she spoke the word that every dog on Earth had learned to obey for thousands of years. The word that her mother had taught her when she was 3 years old and Max was too excited and jumping too high. She said it firmly, without anger, the way you speak to a friend who needs to calm down. Sit. The beast did not sit, but it stopped. Fenris 9 had killed 43 handlers. It had faced soldiers with plasma rifles, psychics with powers that could crush minds, and chemical weapons that could knock out a starship crew. It had never hesitated. It had never paused. It had only destroyed. Now it stood frozen in a dark corridor, staring at a 7-year-old human girl who had just given it a command. Hana kept her eyes on the creature. Her heart was beating fast, but she did not show her fear. Daddy always said that animals could smell fear, and being scared would only make things worse. So she stood tall as a small girl could stand, and waited. The beast's massive head tilted to one side. Its 6 eyes blinked, one after another, studying this strange little creature. Its nostrils flared, taking in her scent. What it found confused it. No adrenaline. No panic chemicals. No fear. This made no sense. Every being Fenris 9 had ever encountered had been afraid. Fear was the natural response to a predator. It was written into the genes of every living creature in the galaxy. You saw something that could kill you, and you felt fear. This was the law of nature. But this tiny human was not afraid. Sit, Hana said again, her voice calm and clear. Please. She added the word, please, because her mother had always taught her to be polite, even when talking to scary things. Maybe especially when talking to scary things. Fenris 9 made a sound. It was not a growl. It was not a roar. It was something softer, questioning. Its body shifted, lowering slightly. Not sitting, not yet, but no longer standing at full attack height. Hana smiled. Good boy, she said. The words hit Fenris 9 like a thunderbolt. Good boy. In 300 years of life, no one had ever called it good. It had been called weapon, monster, beast, destroyer. It had been feared and hated and worshipped and dreaded. But never good. The creature's 6 eyes seemed to change somehow. The cold, hungry glow softened just a fraction. Its massive body lowered further until its belly was almost touching the ground. It was not quite sitting, but it was close. Closer than any handler had ever gotten it. Hana took a step forward. Every instinct should have told her to run. Every lesson of survival should have screamed at her to get away from the killer, the monster, the beast that had murdered 43 beings. But Hana did not listen to those instincts. She listened to something older, something deeper. Something that her species had carried in their blood since the first wolf had wandered close to a human campfire, hungry and curious, and a human had offered it a piece of meat instead of a spear. She reached out her small hand and placed it on the creature's snout. The scales were warm, smoother than they looked. She could feel the beast's breath washing over her arm, hot and heavy. She could hear its heartbeat, slow and powerful, like a drum in the depths of a mountain. "You are not scary," Hana said softly. "You are just lonely. Everyone tries to hurt you, so you hurt them first. But I will not hurt you. I promise." Fenris 9 made another sound. This one was different, softer, almost like a whimper. In the command center, Admiral Tejo stared at the security feed with his mouth hanging open. "That is impossible," he whispered. "That is absolutely impossible." The screen showed a tiny human girl patting the snout of the most dangerous creature in the known galaxy. The beast that had killed 43 handlers was lying on the ground like a trained pet, its eyes half closed, its massive body relaxed. Director Yuna dropped her plasma rifle. It clattered on the floor, but she did not seem to notice. "How?" she said. "How is she doing that?" Dr. Suji was crying. She had arrived at the command center minutes ago with Jimin, both of them desperate to find Hana on the security feeds. Now she stood frozen, tears streaming down her face, watching the impossible scene. "She is not doing anything," Suji said, her voice thick with emotion. "She is just being kind. She is just treating it like any other creature that needs a friend." But the psychic bonds failed. The neural implants failed. Everything failed. Because everything tried to control it. Suji turned to look at the Admiral, her eyes bright with sudden understanding. "Do you not see? Every species that tried, they all wanted to dominate the beast, to break its will, to force it to obey. That is what the galaxy knows. That is what power means to every civilization out here. Control through strength, submission through fear. And humans are different?" Suji thought about Earth, about the first wolves that became dogs, about the wild horses that became partners, about elephants and dolphins and crows that learned to work with humans not because they were forced, but because they chose to. "Yes," she said, "we are different. We are weak. We have no claws, no fangs, no armor. We survived our world not by dominating other creatures, but by making friends with them. We offered trust before we asked for it. We were vulnerable first." On the screen, Hana was now sitting cross-legged on the floor. The massive beast had curled its body around her like a protective wall. Its tail, thick as a tree trunk, lay across her lap. She was stroking it gently, telling the creature about her mother and her dog, Max, and her friend Chirik. "The Krathians designed this creature to resist domination," Suji continued. "They built it to defy control, but they never considered this. They never imagined that someone would simply ask nicely, that someone would offer friendship instead of force." Admiral Tejo shook his head slowly. "One word," he said. "She stopped the most dangerous creature in the galaxy with one word." "No," Suji said. "She stopped it with something much more powerful than words. She stopped it with trust." In the corridor, Hana yawned. It was past her bedtime, and the excitement was catching up with her. She leaned against the beast's warm side, her eyes growing heavy. "I am sleepy," she told the creature, "but do not worry. I will stay with you. I will not leave you alone." Fenris 9 lowered its massive head and gently rested it beside her. Its 6 eyes watched her face as her breathing slowed and she drifted towards sleep. The beast that had killed 43 beings, that had resisted every form of control known to the galaxy, now lay perfectly still so as not to disturb a sleeping child. When the Coalition soldiers finally arrived, weapons ready, they found Hana fast asleep against the creature's side. And when one of them took a step too close, Fenris 9 lifted its head and growled a warning. The soldiers backed away. The beast had found something worth protecting. The news spread across the galaxy like fire. Within hours, every news station on every colonized world was showing the same footage. A tiny human child sitting beside the most feared creature in known space, the beast that had killed 43 handlers. the monster that had resisted every form of control, the weapon that had helped the Krathian Empire conquer 17 star systems, sitting calmly beside a 7-year-old girl who was feeding it pieces of fruit. Ambassador Jimin watched the broadcasts from his quarters, still shaking from the experience of almost losing his daughter. Hana was asleep in her bed now, exhausted from the long night, but even in sleep she smiled, dreaming whatever peaceful dreams children dream. "She saved the station," Suji said, sitting across from him. "If the beast had continued its rampage, hundreds would have died, maybe thousands. She could have been killed. But she was not, because she did something none of us thought to do." Suji leaned forward. "Jimin, do you understand what this means? Not just for Hana, not just for this station, but for humanity?" Jimin looked at her with tired eyes. "I am too exhausted to understand anything right now. The galaxy has looked down on us since first contact. We are too weak, too fragile, too short-lived to matter. We have no psychic powers, no natural weapons, no ancient technology. But we have something else, something no one else has." "What?" "The ability to make friends with anything." In the days that followed, Dr. Suji led a research team studying Fenris 9's neural patterns. What they found amazed them. The Krathians had designed the creature to resist domination. Its brain contained powerful defenses against psychic control, chemical manipulation, and forced submission. Any attempt to break its will triggered immediate violent responses. This was why every handler had failed. They had all tried to dominate the beast, and the beast had been built specifically to destroy anyone who tried. But there was something else in its neural architecture, something the Krathians had never noticed because they had never looked for it. Deep in the creature's brain, dormant pathways existed, pathways meant for bonding, for loyalty, for connection. These pathways had never been activated in 300 years because no one had ever triggered them. Until Hana. "The beast was never uncontrollable," Suji reported to the Coalition Council. "It was waiting for someone who would approach it with trust instead of force, with kindness instead of fear. Its creators designed it to resist enemies. They never imagined it might find a friend." The council chamber was silent. Representatives from 12 species sat in their seats, staring at the small human scientist who had just turned their understanding of the universe upside down. "And the girl?" Admiral Tejo asked. "What happens now?" "Hana has become Fenris 9's primary handler, not through control, through relationship. The beast follows her willingly. It protects her fiercely. It responds to her commands, not because it fears her, but because it trusts her." "A human child," murmured a Velic representative, his mandibles clicking in disbelief. "Controlling a weapon that defeated our greatest psychic masters." "Not controlling," Suji corrected gently. "Befriending. There is a difference." Ambassador Jimin addressed the council that afternoon. He stood at the central podium, a small and fragile-looking figure among the towering representatives of ancient civilizations. But his voice was steady and strong. "You have looked at humanity and seen weakness," he said. "You saw our soft bodies and short lives. You saw our lack of natural weapons and psychic powers. You thought we had nothing to offer the galaxy." He paused, looking around the chamber. "But you missed something. You missed the thing that made us survive our own world. Earth was dangerous. It was filled with predators that were stronger, faster, and deadlier than us. We should have gone extinct 100 times over, but we did not." The council listened. "We survived because we made friends. We befriended wolves, and they became our guardians. We befriended horses, and they carried us across continents. We formed bonds with creatures that could have killed us, and they chose to protect us instead. This is the human way, not domination, not control, trust." He gestured toward the window, where somewhere in the station, A little girl was playing with a creature that had terrified the galaxy. Perhaps the galaxy has been asking the wrong question for thousands of years. Not how do we control what we fear, but how do we understand what we don't? Not how do we break the enemy, but how do we make a friend? The speech changed everything. In the months that followed, humanity's status in the galaxy transformed. They were no longer seen as primitive newcomers. They were seen as something stranger, something more valuable, a species that could bridge gaps no one else could. Human diplomats were requested for difficult negotiations. Human handlers were brought in to work with dangerous creatures. Human approaches to conflict resolution became studied subjects in alien universities. And on the eternal vigilance, Hana continued her work. She walked through the station every day with Fenris 9 padding beside her. The creature that had once terrorized entire star systems now followed a child like a loyal dog. Other species watched in awe and slowly, in fascination. Some began to approach, curious about this strange new way of interacting with other beings. A young Moor child was the first to try. She was small for her kind, her crystalline body glowing with nervous blue light. She approached Hana with obvious fear, her glow flickering like a candle in wind. "Is it safe?" she asked. Hana smiled and took her hand. "He is very safe. You just have to be nice first. Here, let me show you." She guided the Moor child closer. She showed her how to hold out her hand, how to wait for the beast to come to her, how to speak softly and move slowly. The Moor child's glow slowly changed from nervous blue to curious yellow. When Fenris 9 finally lowered its head to accept her touch, the glow burst into brilliant white joy. "It is not hard," Hana said, watching the Moor child giggle with delight. "You just have to be nice first." High above, in the observation gallery, Admiral Tejo and Director Yuna watched the scene. "She is teaching them," Yuna said softly, "teaching them what humanity learned thousands of years ago." Tejo nodded slowly. "We spent so long trying to control the beast, trying to dominate it, break it, force it to submit, and all we needed was a child who did not know how to be afraid." "No," Yuna corrected. "All we needed was a species that learned to trust before they learned to conquer. We forgot that lesson somewhere in our history. Humanity never did." Below them, Hana laughed as Fenris 9 rolled onto its back, exposing its belly for scratches like some enormous, terrifying puppy. The Moor child was glowing so bright she lit up the entire corridor. And somewhere in the galaxy, the story spread further, the story of the unbreakable beast and the little girl who had tamed it with a single word. Not a word of command. A word of trust. Sit. And the universe would never be the same. Tejo closed his eyes. The Valak were insectoid beings with powerful mental abilities. They could form psychic bonds with almost any creature in the known galaxy. Their handlers had tamed beasts that made Earth dinosaurs look like house pets. And yet Fenris 9 had killed their specialist in 14 seconds. "We have tried everything," Yuna continued. She pulled up a holographic display, showing a long list of failed attempts. Psychic bonds shatter within moments. Chemical sedation requires doses that would kill the creature. We implanted neural control devices 3 times. Each time the beast clawed them out of its own skull within hours. Pain means nothing to it? It appears not. The Krathians designed these creatures to withstand anything. Pain, fear, hunger, exhaustion. They cannot be broken because they were built to be unbreakable. Through the window, Fenris 9 suddenly stopped pacing. Its 6 eyes turned toward the observation deck, and Tejo felt a chill run down his spine. The creature could not possibly see through the one-way glass. And yet somehow, it knew they were watching. A low growl rumbled through the chamber, so deep that Tejo felt it in his bones rather than heard it in his ears. "Why do we not simply kill it?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. Because it is the last one. Because the Krathian Empire is rebuilding in the outer systems. Because if we can understand how they created these weapons, we might be able to defend against them. Yuna turned off the holographic display. And because we cannot kill it even if we wanted to. The only weapons powerful enough would destroy half this station. The Eternal Vigilance was the largest space station the Coalition had ever built. It served as the central hub for 12 allied species, a floating city that housed over 2 million beings. Destroying half of it was not an option. The Moor have offered to try next, Yuna said. Taiho shook his head slowly. The Moor were crystalline beings who communicated through vibrations and light patterns. They were peaceful by nature, more scientists than warriors. They will fail. They believe their unique biology might... They will fail, Taiho repeated, as the Velik failed, as the Thren failed, as everyone has failed. He turned away from the window, unable to look at the creature any longer. This beast was designed by the Krathians to resist every form of control known to the galaxy. It has been engineered specifically to defy subjugation. Every species that tries will meet the same end. Then what do you suggest? For a long moment, Taiho did not answer. He was thinking about the reports he had read, the history of the Krathian Empire and their terrible war beasts. Fenris 9 was not just a weapon, it was a statement. It said that some things could not be conquered, some things could not be tamed, some things existed only to destroy. I suggest, he finally said, that we find a different approach entirely, one that no one has thought of yet. Yuna laughed bitterly. The greatest minds of 12 civilizations have studied this problem. Psychic species, chemical specialists, neural engineers, military strategists, all of them have failed. What different approach could possibly remain? Taiho had no answer. In the containment chamber, Fenris 9 threw back its massive head and released a roar that shook the observation deck. The sound was not just loud, it was hungry. It was a promise of violence, of destruction, of death to anyone foolish enough to enter its domain. The beast had been imprisoned for 6 months. It had killed 43 handlers from 7 different species. It had shattered psychic bonds, destroyed control implants, and laughed at chemical restraints. Every form of power the galaxy knew, force, fear, technology, and mental domination, had proven useless against it. And somewhere in the outer systems, the remnants of the Krathian Empire were breeding more. Taiho walked away from the observation deck with heavy steps. Behind him, through 3 meters of reinforced glass, Fenris 9 watched him go. Its 6 eyes glowed with something that might have been hatred or might have been amusement. The beast could wait. It had waited for 300 years in the service of the Empire. It could wait a little longer to be free. And when it finally broke loose, and it would break loose, it was only a matter of time, it would paint this station red with the blood of its captors. No one in the galaxy could stop it. No one in the galaxy could control it. The Warbeast was unbreakable, or so everyone believed.